Hello, everybody, and welcome. My name is Bennett Tchaikovsky, and this is my Wiley solution walkthrough. This is accounting tools for business decision making, 8th edition. This is exercise 24-24 as it relates to standard costing. Textbook authors are Paul Kimmel, Jerry Weingett, and Jill Mitchell, and the question used in the presentation is copyright 2022 by John Wiley and Sons. All rights are reserved. This is for educational purposes only. The video may not be distributed or redistributed without the express permission of Wiley. The solution presentation is copyright 2022 by Bennett Tchaikovsky. All rights are reserved. The opinions contained within this presentation are those of Bennett Tchaikovsky and not the authors of the textbook or of Wiley. So let's go ahead and take a look at our question for today before we say thank you to the bus driver. So what I've done here is I've kind of gone through and I've just kind of typed out the question that was in the book. So if it looks like a little bit different, again, hopefully this is something you guys can take a look at, or you go through and kind of do a screenshot, or I don't know, whatever you kids do with that crazy technology these days, huh? Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at this one question. So Monty Services is trying to establish the standard labor cost of a typical brake repair. The following data has been collected from time and motion studies conducted over the past month. Okay, so when we are looking at direct labor variances and standard costing for direct labor, what's our overall goal? Well, we have our actual hours, and then we have our actual rate. And this is going to give us what we actually spent on our direct labor, AH times AR over here. And we're ultimately going to be comparing this to our standard hours times the standard hourly rate or standard rate. Okay. And right over here. Okay. So this is really what we should have spent, meaning how many hours did I go through in budget for times my standard rate, and this is what I actually spent. Okay, so this is the ultimate way we're going to be going through and looking at this. But now we have the middle zone, or what we like to call the twilight zone, which is really, well, how can we isolate where the variance is coming from? Well, so we're going to basically put this over here, which is going to be our actual hours times our standard rate. And by going through and looking at this in terms of for labor, my actual hours times my actual rate minus my standard hours times my standard rate, this is going to give me my total direct labor variance. My actual hours times my actual rate less the actual hours times the standard rate. This is going to give me my rate variance. They sometimes may refer to this as a price variance, but I refer to it as rate. Then over here, you've got comparing this to here. If I take actual hours times the standard rate minus my standard hours times the standard rate, this is going to give me my efficiency variance for direct labor. And what Wiley is calling this is basically they're calling this a quantity variance, which is fine. It's really talking about the quantity of hours. Okay, so this is ultimately what we're going to try to go through and do. So for all these different problems that are going through and involving direct labor variances, but this one's a little bit different. I kind of like this question because it's asking as well, what are the standard direct hours per brake repair? So the actual time that's spent on the brake repair is an hour. Okay, and I'm not concerned with their wage rate or the fringe benefits or the payroll taxes. What I'm more concerned with is how much time is it really taking me to go through and to perform this brake job. So over here, this is saying for setup and downtime, it's 20% of actual labor time. So over here, my setup and downtime is going to be 0.2 hours. And then over here for my cleanup and rest period, this is going to be 0.3 hours. So the total amount of time in terms of like to do one brake repair is going to be 1.5 hours. And this is essentially my standard direct labor hours per brake repair. So the reason why this is important is like this is essentially, you know, as I'm going through and doing this, this is what it's going to take me to do one brake repair. Okay, so I'm just essentially adding up these three items. Okay, now determine the standard direct labor hourly rate. So for my direct labor hourly rate, I'm going to start up here with my hourly rate, wage rate. And this is going to be $12 per hour. Okay, now what happens with us as employers? Well, guess what? We're going to come over here. Let's take a look at 940 form 941. And as an employer, what you have to go through and do is you see this little 0.124. Well, what does that mean? Those are Social Security taxes. So when you see that 6.2% up to a certain level of wages that are being deducted from your paycheck, that's what that represents. So when we see this, and also the Medicare 2.9%, that represents a 1.45% contribution from the employer, and then a 1.45% from the employee. So when you see that 1.45% being deducted from your paycheck on an unlimited basis, you now know where that's coming from. Okay, so over here, when I look at this, that's what that 10%, the payroll taxes, that's what that represents. So my this is my base hourly wage rate, but I'm going to multiply this over here by 12 bucks. I'm going to multiply this by 0.1, or this is going to give me $1.20. Okay, why is this? This is going to be 10%, basically, which are my payroll taxes, essentially times the 12. Because remember, this is what the employer is going to have to pay it on top of the withholdings. Whatever it pays for the employee, it has to match for the employer. Okay, over here, we've got a fringe benefits. Now, what are fringe benefits? Well, if I offer things like healthcare, right, I may be required to offer that. If I offer any type of, might also have, I'm not sure if it will be a benefit, but I have to provide workers' compensation insurance, which is going to be very, very expensive. So when you're looking at this as being 25%, this is really kind of saying like, well, it doesn't cost us just $12 to hire an employee. I also have to pay this, you know, basically this fringe benefit. So this is going to be over here. This is going to be 25% at times the 12. So my total standard direct labor hourly rate is going to be $16.20. So for, you know, every hour that my employees are spending, it's going to cost me $16.20 an hour. I might only be paying my employees 12, but this is what it's actually going through and costing me. Okay, so determine the standard direct labor cost per brake repair. So, well, what is the standard direct labor cost per brake repair? Well, if we look over here and we say that our standard hours are going to be 1.5 hours, right? That's what we just computed. And my rate per hour, my standard rate, so over here, it's going to be $24.30. So my standard direct labor hours per brake repair is 1.5 hours. My standard direct hourly rate, and then my act over here, I've got this $24.30. Now over here, if it says that if the brake repair took 1.6 hours at the standard hourly rate, what is the direct labor quantity variance? Okay, so let's kind of go over here and take a look at this, right? So what we're going to do over here is we're going to put in the information that we actually go through and know. So we'll go ahead and start applying this. So if I come over here, right, my standard hours are 1.5 hours, right? My standard rate is $16.20. So over here, if I take 1.5 times 16.2, it should be costing me relatively $24.30 per hour. But what it tells me is that it took me 1.6 hours. So this is what I actually spent doing it. But it was at the standard hourly rate, meaning it was still going to be over here. My standard hourly rate is $16.20, okay, or $25.92. Now, as I look at this over here, the first thing that I want to kind of go through and say to myself is, is this in fact, is this overall variance favorable or unfavorable? Well, if I look at the total direct labor variance, this would basically be unfavorable. Why is it unfavorable? Because I spent $25.92 per hour, or excuse me, for the break job. That's what I spent on the break job for the actual amount I spent, but I should have only spent $24.30. So that's our first thing. We know it's going to be unfavorable. Now, in terms of coming up with the middle value, I'm going to take my actual hours and I'm going to have over here the standard rate. So this is going to be over here, 1.6 times 16.2 or $25.92. Now, why does this look the same? It's because we're being told that we know the actual hours are here, but the standard rate is the same across the board. So the actual amount that was spent, it tells us over here, it was at the standard hourly rate. So in terms of if we were asked to define the price or the rate variance, there wouldn't be any, right? What we're really focused on here is, and what they're asking about is, well, what is the direct labor quantity variance? Well, the direct labor quantity variance is going to be this relationship here, is we put in that middle value, and then we look at what we should have spent, which was $24.30. So $25.92 minus $24.30. This is basically going to give me $1.62. And it doesn't matter to me on my exams if you say it's positive or negative. I really don't care. But what I'm more concerned about is this unfavorable or unfavorable? Well, it's going to be unfavorable. Why is it going to be unfavorable? Because it took me longer to work on the break job than my standard hours that I had estimated. So this variance over here is unfavorable. So in any event, that's what exercise 24-4. Hopefully it was relatively pain-free. But anyways, I want to thank Wiley for allowing me to make these videos. For how much longer, I have no idea, but they are allowing me to do it. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. If there's any other solutions you'd like to see from Wiley or from any kind of financial or managerial accounting text or intermediate, feel free to send me a message. Have a great day.